March 22nd, 2025. Well, the lawfare against the Trump agenda continues, and the domestic terrorism against Elon Musk's Tesla cars also continues. So it's been kind of the thrust of the week here. Okay, so let's look at the issue of the lawfare. Basically, I guess there's an ongoing battle with a district court judge in D.C. over the deportation of these Venezuelan thugs from the prison gang group, and apparently there's a big debate about whether or not they obeyed his order or not. Apparently it sounds like that the attitude that they've taken is that they had them in transit anyhow, and they didn't return the airplanes around, and at least two of the planes apparently left the country by the time that happened, and they didn't turn them around. So that'll be an interesting question. Of course, ultimately, what would really come of it, I don't know. But so far there's been battles been going on about whether or not the administration will provide the information he wants, and he's a little upset about the tone of some of the presentations that have been made. So it becomes kind of a area of contention, I guess you'd say. And I don't know, this has got often various calls on the part of members of Congress, President Trump, Elon Musk, for the judge to be impeached, so this has then led to the Chief Justice Roberts saying that impeaching a judge over his opinions or whatever isn't appropriate, and so this is causing a little bit of a brouhaha, let's say. I don't know what can ultimately be done about it. I mean, essentially, the question, I guess, it would get into who actually, made what decision, when they made it, who knew what, when, and all that. That could get kind of interesting. Although ultimately, I think if the judge wants to have a situation where there really is a disobedience of his authority, he better watch it, or it might actually end up happening. Because ultimately, I don't know exactly what he can practically do. I mean, the enforcement arm is in the hand of the executive, although it would look very bad when you're trying to enforce the law if you're not obeying it yourself, so to speak. So that's one of those situations that we're faced with. My own thoughts on the subject are that in a sense, I think the Trump administration is being a little too intense on the subject at the moment. It's obvious to me that the judges are completely out of line what they're doing, of course. But the court systems, such as they are, allow them to come up with wild ideas and play around with them, and for discussion purposes. That's kind of the nature of the judiciary, rather than actually getting down to the decision that needs to be made right now, which is more the domain of the executive. So I would I would caution that they ought to kind of tone a little the rhetoric around. First of all, impeachment's not a practical thing, so why are we even talking about it? Yeah, you can impeach anybody you want to impeach, and what does that do? Well, the country is divided as we're in right now. A Democrat can be as flagrantly wrong as possible, and the Democrats aren't going to remove him no matter what he's doing. Maybe if the guy was actually convicted of bribery in just an ordinary routine case, then they might be up for removing him from office. But short of things of that sort, I think that they don't care. I mean, and so anyway, if you like these videos, please give me a like, subscribe, and click the bell for notifications. Or you can follow me on Rumble, which the address is in the description below. Yeah, so that's my general thought is, yeah, if we could remove him from office, I'd be all for it. We just can't, so why are we talking about what we can't do? If you see what I'm getting at. I mean, it seems to me it'd be more important to focus on the idea that, okay, he's really ignoring proper precedents and the actual text of the laws more than he should be, and that's the focus of what we should be saying about it. And at any rate, of course, I guess they decided to go ahead and just, I'm not sure what the exact fact is. I think they're going to argue that that once they left the country, it'd be inappropriate to bring illegal immigrants back in the country, I guess. Or I don't know whether that's, you know, uh, the other aspect, they seem to be playing around with the security authority of the president. In my opinion, like I said, I think the key thing is just get to a decision and then appeal it and try to get to the Supreme Court without really ruffling the sensitivities of the judiciary. Because if the judiciary isn't acting in some way as to send a message to the president, then I think they'd be acting in a way at the Supreme Court level to send a message to the judge. But the problem right now is that the president is always acts like he's going to do something inappropriate, even when he's not. I mean, he kind of radiates this general contempt for these people, and I agree. I have contempt for them too. But when you're dealing with this judiciary, the one thing the judiciary seems to pride itself on is its authority and its propriety and all that garbage. So when you go against that, it's kind of like somebody that sort of disrespects a police officer is going to run into trouble that they wouldn't run into if they say sir or officer to them. You know what I'm saying? And I think the same thing is kind of going on here with this judiciary. It wants to be recognized as kind of a co-equal branch. And even though it's breaking the precedents, if you go too overboard against the judiciary, then they tend to react in kind. And of course, Roberts we need his vote, honestly. I don't think we can totally trust how any of these people are going to vote, particularly him and maybe Comey Barrett, excuse me, how they're going to vote on these issues if we get too abrasive with these people. I mean, it's a tricky situation. And so anyway, we'll see how that plays out. I think that we need to the key thing is to go ahead and get to the court on some of the better cases. I mean, they did get into a problem with the Supreme Court on the one about the USAID situation. And of course, there I think it was a question of whether or not we'd fulfill contracts that had already been signed with various organizations. In other words, we wouldn't have signed, the Trump administration would not have signed those contracts if they were in at the time, but the previous administration was in and did sign them. And so the government is sort of bound by them. I think that's at least the theory I think that was going. And remember, even then, it wasn't an ultimate decision. It was simply a refusal to issue a stay while the thing was being heard. So, and that's one of those deals that you got to kind of, I don't know. This is going to be a mess, I can tell already. But overall, I think that the idea is to continue operations. And well, ultimately, I don't think we're going to actually bring them back in the country, probably. And so, they're kind of gone, I think. But and I don't know exactly what effectively. I guess they could try to sanction some lower level people. I mean, in general, if they did say find them in contempt of court and put a sentence on them, couldn't the president just turn around and pardon them? So, I mean, I think that would seem to be, as far as I know, an option that would exist, which would be kind of contentious, but it might be what might happen. So at any rate, that's kind of that. The other thing that's developing and expanding apparently is this domestic terrorism against Elon Musk and the Tesla organization and people who own Teslas, which is kind of interesting because probably the bulk of the people that own Teslas, not everybody, but I'd say the majority are probably Democrats and liberals. They're people that probably mostly believe in the global warming theory and support the policies that probably the previous administration did, yet they're being subjected to sabotage and terrorism over owning a particular type of car, most of which bought prior to this whole situation with Elon Musk taking a role in the Doge organization and all of his activities in support of President Trump. So the question then is, this seems to be a rational behavior on the Democrats to the nth degree. The good side of it, I think, is this may give us an opportunity to use the full investigative power of the FBI, which we now control. I mean, we have Kash Patel and Dan Bongino on the top two positions in the FBI. So we can now use those same capabilities that were used against the January 6th people, and try to hunt down who's behind all this attacks on the Tesla vehicles, and try to find them, because ultimately we want to get after people who are financing these organizations, which will be behind the scenes. Those people are not going to be out throwing a Molotov cocktail personally, I don't think. But perhaps by pursuing this properly, if it's done aggressively, might get wiretaps and might actually find out that they actually were encouraging the kind of violence. I'm pretty sure they won't probably put that down in writing, but if they knew that was what they were doing, then it might raise the level of conspiracy, and we could indict them and put them on trial for that. And even if we didn't get a conviction, we might be able to drag them through a lot of trouble, just like they drug our people through trouble. So, I mean, in many instances, we probably get convictions and serious prison sentences, depending on what jurisdiction and what judge we end up with. Because as much as people like to pretend our justice system is well organized and appropriate, in reality, it has a lot of flaws of individuals. I think the judges are becoming more and more partisan over time, and that leads to some serious difficulties for the country and any concept of actual justice. So, at any rate, that's kind of the main developments that are happening. It looks like that while there's been a theoretical agreement to a truce in terms of attacking energy infrastructure, and maybe that's actually holding in the Ukraine war, but it doesn't look like the truce is extended to anything else right now. I don't really recall other questions. I'm not sure exactly what date and time the truce was supposed to take effect on the energy infrastructure. Plus, the readout from the Russians and the Americans was different. The Russians saw energy infrastructure as what was being prohibited, but we saw infantry and infrastructure, and that might include things like bridges and so forth, or port facilities. And so you can see what I mean. That they may not even at this point be on the same page as what they agreed to. I think they need to be a little bit more careful on the idea of getting both sides to agree to something and to have the same text, and then have a time that the 30-day effort is supposed to take place. And I don't know that they actually achieved that. So anyhow, the war continues as always, so pretty much. And so I'll be wrapping this up for now, and I'll be posting this on both YouTube and Rumble as always, and the description my social media accounts are in the description below, and so that'll be all for this time.